got a fair bit to cover today because we're doing our five skills to succeed in a squiggly career. A sort of classic episode, that one of those where you think, I can't believe we've not recorded this before. But I think because Helen and I spend so much of our time thinking about those things, we sort of forget that we've actually never done an episode bringing those five skills together. So I hope you found it useful. If you have listened, if you're joining PodPlus for the first time, as a reminder, you never need to listen to join. We will always try to make this feel a bit different from the podcast experience because we're learning together and as a group. And there's no test. There's no, oh, what happened in minute 13 of the podcast or anything like that. So we can all relax and sort of enjoy it. So before I share my screen, I thought we would start this morning with some coach yourself questions on the five skills. Hence why the pen and paper are handy. So if you get those ready to go, that might be useful. So I've got 5 questions for you. And as we go through each of them, I'd like you to first of all just do this for yourself. So just go through this exercise for yourself. And then there are a couple of questions we're going to come back to and do a bit of sharing in chat. But I just wanted to give you a moment first to just reflect for yourself and sort of by yourself without that pressure of multitasking and needing to sort of add stuff into chat. So we'll come back to that in a second. So 5 questions for you, 1 on each of the 5 skills to succeed in a squiggly career. I'm just going to let the last few people come into the waiting room because I can just see 5 more people joining. Okay, here we go. So question 1 for you, a strengths-based question. What 3 words would you like to use to describe yourself at your best? So what 3 words do you want to use to describe you at your best? No right or wrong. Just jot down 3 words and we're not going to hold you to them. Don't worry. What springs to mind? I will put each of the questions in chat in case anybody's joining a bit late. So what 3 words would you use to describe yourself at your best? And if you don't know, just note down the question and put a question mark. Not knowing is really helpful. It's actually a really helpful starting point. That in itself is self-awareness. So thinking, oh, that's interesting. I've got a gap there. I've got a gap in my knowledge. I've got a gap in my awareness. So much easier to do something about it once you know you've got the gap. So don't worry too much if you don't know just yet. Okay, question 2. Again, just jotting this down for yourself. What are the first things that spring to mind? So this is a values-based question. What's most important to you about the work that you do? So what's most important to you about the work that you do? Again, I'm just putting them in chat as a reminder, but feel you don't need to answer them. Just sort of a reflection for you, for yourself. But if you want to put some responses in chat, that's completely up to you. Question 3, thinking now a bit about confidence. When you've had a hard time in your career, what has helped you to move forward? When you've had a hard time in your career, what has helped you to move forward? Okay, question 4. How could you help other people with their careers? How could you help other people with their career? Thanks, Katie. And then last one, who could you have a curious career conversation with? So this, again, very personal question for you. Who could you have a curious career conversation with? And if you're writing down notes for yourself, write down their name. So rather than using a sort of, a mentor, a manager, actually think about, is there somebody you'd like to reconnect with? Is there someone that you work with today? Is there someone in a different team? Is there someone here that maybe you know because you turn up every week and you think, I've always been really curious about what they do and the contributions they make? So who could you have a curious career conversation with? So just to repeat those 5 questions that we're reflecting on before I share my screen, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself at your best? What's most important to you about the work that you do? When you've had a hard time in your career, what's helped you to move forward? How could you help other people in their careers? And who could you have a curious career conversation with? Just 5 useful coach yourself questions just to get yourself started thinking about these 5 skills. And let me just hopefully share my screen. Great. So just thinking now about those 5 different questions, let's just add those onto screen. So we asked a strengths-based question there, which was the 3 words. We talked about values, which was a what's the most important question. Confidence, where we talked about kind of what's helped before with the hard times. Then we did a network question, which was how could you help people helping people? And then possibilities, which was the curious career conversation. Of those 5, and I'll number them in case you can't annotate on screen, which of those 5 questions felt hardest for you to answer? So either put a star on my screen using the annotation, view options, annotate, stamp, and then star. View options, annotate, stamp, and then star. Which of those 5 questions felt hardest to answer? We were doing that pretty quickly. And if you can't do the annotation, please don't worry. You can always just put that in chat. View options, annotate, stamp, and then star. Which of those felt hardest to answer? So quite a few of us saying here, this sort of possibilities area. Perhaps somebody obvious didn't spring to mind. A few people talking about strengths, network, confidence. Confidence, quite a lot of people talking about confidence. That one's kind of increasing as we're going. Okay, and the point that we want to make here is what we are not suggesting is that you try to sort of simultaneously take action on all 5 skills at the same time. What we actually really want you to do is to prioritize, is to think about within these 5 skills, which one of these feels most relevant for me right now? Which one of these do I want to take some action on? Which one of these do I want to make some progress on? So maybe you're thinking at the moment, actually, I really want to spend some time over here. When Sarah asked me that question, maybe I got one answer. I saw a couple of you in chat said, I've got one answer, maybe helpful or positive, but actually I struggled with the 3 words. So actually you really want to spend some time there thinking about what would those 3 words be? With our strengths, we want them to be choices. We want them to be things that we kind of proactively think about. Perhaps it was values where you're thinking, I'm not sure what's most important to me. I've not asked myself that question before. Confidence could just be a bit about taking a bit more time, thinking about the knotty moments. We often talk here about what are the knotty moments in your squiggly career so far? What did you learn? What did you do well? Give yourself credit for those things, for finding your way through those knotty moments. And remember, you'll be able to do it again because those knotty moments don't go away. But I do think we can get better at kind of getting untangled as and when we need to. Networking, people helping people. How can you help? Sometimes we find people think, I haven't got anything to give. We've all got something to give. time, energy, passion, expertise, interest, a very specific technical skill. So what have you got to give and how could you give it? And then these curious career conversations, not waiting until you want to make a change in your career, whether that is a change you want to be promoted, or a change you want to transfer your talents into a different team, or whether you want to do a very dramatic career change. If we wait until those moments to start building those relationships, we've waited for too long. So what we want to do is continually be investing in exploring possibilities. And curious career conversations are a great way to do that. So let's talk about some ideas for action on each of those 5 areas. So hopefully everybody goes away today thinking, I've got something I can go away and do. So when we think about strengths, one of the things that we find helpful is to think about strengths in relation to energy. What gives you energy? Rather than just what am I good at? If you ask just what am I good at, you sometimes fall into a couple of traps. First trap is you are good at loads of different things. So you might spread yourself too thinly in terms of making some of those strengths stronger. And you can sort of end up in this territory, and I've definitely done this before, of where you're sort of trying to be equally brilliant at everything, and then you don't end up being brilliant at anything. So the sort of trying to do everything often means you don't get to kind of anything in terms of that spike that we're looking for in terms of your strengths. So thinking about what gives you energy, not just what you're good at. Also remembering you choose. That point about choice is really important with strengths. It's easy to, again, sometimes go with our strengths based on what someone else tells us or what we think they should be. Or maybe you've even done a personality profile that tells you what your strengths are. Now, those sorts of profiles are not necessarily bad in themselves, but just see them as sort of input, see them as insights. You still decide. You decide what you want to be known for, what you want people to say about you when you're not in the room, what you want to build your reputation for. And so having a go at what we often describe as an energy audit can be really helpful. So just thinking about, as you go through a week, what are the moments that give you energy and what are the moments that take away your energy? And actually, it's often easiest to do this day by day. So if you were splitting your day up into, let's say you do work a 5-day week, looking back at the end of a day and just think, what was my high energy moment today? Maybe it was that meeting. Maybe it was something when you were working on a project by yourself. Maybe there wasn't a high energy moment on Wednesday. Maybe it was there on a Thursday. And maybe it was there on a Friday. So look for those high energy moments and then ask yourself a what question. What strengths were you using in those high energy moments? So every time I do this exercise, it doesn't matter whether I'm working by myself, in big groups, with other people, or actually what I'm working on. The thing that always comes up for me is I get a lot of energy from creating, from the space to have ideas, from the space to start something from scratch. And that is as true now as it was 10 years ago. And I'm doing a very different job now to the job I was doing 10 years ago, but that has remained really true. So I want to pull more opportunities and possibilities towards me to spend more time creating, to have ideas, to have that kind of white space to create stuff from scratch. That gives me a lot of energy. It's what I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room. And I want people to point work my way that will give me more chance and opportunity to do that. So if you've never done an energy audit, perhaps have a go next week. It literally takes 1 minute at the end of a day. At the end of a day, just look back over your diary, use your diary as data for your development and just think, what was my highest energy moment? And it's a really good way just to get you started. Next, values. We didn't get as many people starring values. Values is one of those areas where it can feel, I think, a bit daunting, sometimes a bit abstract, potentially even a bit sort of airy-fairy, this idea of values. Just think of it as what's most important to you, what motivates and drives you. And if strengths are more about what you do, I think values are more about who you are. So if strengths are more about the what, values are more about the who. That's a tad overly simplistic, but at a high level, it's quite a useful way to understand the relationship between the two. And if you're just getting started on values, my favorite exercise to do is to have a look at your Squiggly career so far and reflect on the highs and the lows. So if I was just very quickly doing a quick squiggle, my Squiggly career so far would look something like this. Everybody's sort of goes up, down, somewhere in between, and there you go. And these moments are the moments where things are pretty neutral. Actually, let's do a little smaller face for you here. These are pretty neutral faces. These are the highs, and this is where things are not going so well. What we're most interested in here is, what do your highs have in common, and what can you learn from your lows? What do your highs have in common? What can you learn from your lows? We sometimes call this high-low learning. I find this particularly useful, and you will have heard Helen and I mention this on the podcast this week, to do high-low learning with someone else you trust, someone else you get on with really well. The reason for that is, when you just describe your highs and your lows to someone else, basically you're just sharing a few stories. Oh, it was so great when, and how awful was it when this thing happened? What someone else can do for you is just really listen, and then they can sort of share back, what did they hear? Because sometimes you might not realize that you said learning 17 times in the stories that you shared, or you clearly get frustrated when you don't have autonomy. So someone can just sort of give you back those words, and then you can figure out, how do you feel about them? Do they feel like words that describe the things that kind of motivate and drive you? If you want to spend some time on confidence, and there's quite a few stars on confidence, a great way to get started is your very small successes. And note the word very. Sometimes when I say this, I still get people sharing a massive success they've had over the past year. But here, we're very much in the territory of the small moments that are going well, the kind of wins along the way. And the reason this builds your resilience and builds your self-belief, it reminds us consistently and continually of the good stuff. What went well today? What was my win of the week this week? So in Amazing If, for example, every Friday we share our wins of the week. It's my favorite moment of every week. I love reading the things that people feel really proud of. But I use very small successes personally when I'm having a knotty moment. When things don't feel like they're going well, I write down one very small success at the end of every day, at the end of the complete day, not just your work day. Your very small successes can come from work, they can come from home. And it's really important that you write them down. If you only remember one thing about very small successes, don't assume your brain will give you credit for them by just thinking about them. We don't. We all naturally have a negativity bias, which is desperate to spend loads more time on the things that are not going well. And when you're having a knotty moment, that's sort of fuel for your negativity bias. And so to kind of address that bias in our brains sometimes towards negativity, to being our own worst critic, you've got to write them down. Write them down on a bit of paper every day in the same place. Scribble them down in the notes section of your phone. I just always put them in the notes section of my phone. I tend to do it for about 8 days. And then after 8 days, I find I've sort of made some progress. I feel more optimistic. I'm sort of back in a good place. So use it individually. Think about how you might use it as a team. Next one, networking. The one where the definition matters, particularly if you're an introvert like me. People helping people. Networking is not about how many people you know, it's about how many people you can help. We know givers gain more when it comes to your career. The more you give, the more you will gain. Not always in the moment, but sort of trust to this idea of career karma. And I can speak from personal experience that reframing networking as people helping people completely opened up my perspective to building relationships that were going to support me with my Squiggly career. I felt much more confident and comfortable with helping than I did with sort of receiving or trying to think about what I could gain. That to me just felt too much like, well, it felt too much too one way for me, too transactional. And so when you're thinking about your network, 4 C's. So 4 ways you can think about the role that you can play in a network. So you can be a consumer, which is that you're consuming something, insight, knowledge, PodPlus on a Thursday morning, and then you are giving that to other people. So you are sharing what you know so other people can succeed. A great way of giving. So you can be a consumer. I'll perhaps try and squeeze it in there just as a reminder. It's going to be very small, sorry. Consumer. You can be a contributor. This is sort of more active than a consumer. A consumer, you're sort of slightly more taking what you're getting anyway, and then you're giving it to other people. Great. Contributor, you're more actively thinking, what have I got to give? How am I going to give it? And who am I going to give it to? Now, for me, when I first started working in career development, I'd not got loads of expertise to give in career development. I had got time and enthusiasm. So I was really contributing time and enthusiasm to bring people together about career development. And then over time, it shifted that I was probably giving more expertise, but it certainly wasn't expertise that I was contributing initially. Next, connector. Be generous with your connections. Connect people together. It's a simple introduction. It's spotting the chance to bring people together, and then you can just sort of get out of the way. I really like that. I am able to do that a lot more now than I could, say, 10 years ago, since that reframe of people helping people. If you'd have said to me, "Oh, be a connector," 10 years ago, I would have said, well, that's all well and good if you're extrovert and you've got a brilliant network, but that's not me. But now I can do that much more. Now I've done that reframe. Or maybe be a creator. So if a network doesn't exist that you want to be part of, create it, make it happen. And the last one, possibilities. Being curious about where your career can take you. Creating, not waiting, and having those curious career conversations. And just really thinking about, how can I prototype my possibilities? How can I pull possibilities towards me that are going to give me more chance to sort of be in control of my squiggle, to feel like I'm squiggling in a way that works for me. And I know sometimes that can almost sound like a dream, pulling the right possibilities towards me. But I have seen that when you take some of these small actions, and it's always small actions with any of these things, it's always small actions that then add up to the bigger thing that you're aiming for. Nobody in any of this stuff goes from 0 to hero, I can promise you. What we've seen from working with people and testing these ideas since 2013 in lots of different ways, shapes and forms, it's always the people who take ownership for their squiggle and commit to continual action, usually quite small action. They're the people who are sort of squiggling with success, who when you say to them, yeah, how do you feel about your squiggly career at the moment? They're positive, they're upbeat, they feel in control, as much as control as you can feel, and they feel really positive about the progress they're making. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And what I thought we would finish with today is, let me know in chat one piece of career advice you would give to people to navigate their squiggly career. So I've talked to you very practically today about the 5 skills to succeed in a squiggly career. But if you were talking to someone and they were said, look, what's your one bit of career advice? You know, as we all start navigating this squiggle, what's the piece of advice that you would give everybody? If you could put those into chat, that would be great. And I'm just going to plug my laptop in before it dies. So give me 2 seconds. Also, top tip, I bought a fake Apple Mac charger and it is not working very well. I can literally see the wires. So either I'm going to get an electric shock later today or my laptop's going to die. So one or the other. It's still charging, but I can literally see the wires coming out of the plug. Let's see where we are with our career advice. Steve, I love that. You're always very wise. Know what you would do if you lost your job tomorrow and it frees you up to be brave. Yeah. Oh, bravery coming up from a few people. Madeline as well. Yeah. Find what you enjoy. I like that, Lauren. Yeah. Just enjoyment or contentment, I think, is really good. Bev, brilliant. Plant seeds today that are going to grow your future. That is exactly what we're talking about in terms of that possibilities that create, don't wait. Nikki, love that word openness. Yeah. Being really open. I was actually preparing for the next podcast we're recording, and we're doing how to learn from hard moments. And I was thinking that's one of the things I want to be true about myself in the hard moments, that I stay open. So I really like that word, open, and opportunities. Brilliant. Oh, just keep swimming. Always good advice. And Finding Nemo is a great film, which I'm desperately trying to persuade my 6-year-old to enjoy. but he's not that into animation. He likes facts and real life stuff, which is very disappointing. Jamie, great, keep learning, be more confident. Oh, lovely, Andrew. I really like how specific that is. Don't take a lack of an answer for a no. Yeah, don't sort of assume it's a rejection, or it might just be a not now. Not now doesn't mean not ever. Oh, what colour is your parachute, Andrew? Great. I always like that. We've got an exercise a bit like that in the end of You Coach You, like write your dream job description, basically. Use joy as your guide, stay open-minded about your future. That word open again. Oh, really great, Jade. Know when to let a knotty job go. Yeah, I think I sometimes talk about the elegant exit. Know when it is okay to say this is not working for me, and then figure out how to leave, like in your own way, which is great. Looking at values, brilliant. Talking to lots of different people. Yeah, that learning coming up a lot, always been work in progress. My favourite bit of career advice is never live the same year twice. I once heard years ago a lady called Nicola Mendelsohn, who actually is now, she's got a very, very senior job at, they're not Facebook anymore, are they? Meta. And I remember just listening to Nicola saying, I think she said it in quite an offhand way, but it really stuck with me. And it's not about changing jobs all the time. It's just about having new experiences, always being work in progress, or certainly that's how I interpret that. So never live the same year twice. And I know that Helen's is run your own race, which I always find really helpful. You know, when you're getting tempted by comparison or what other people are doing, or giving yourself a hard time, sometimes run your own race can be quite good advice. Oh, Sam, one you've learned from this community is the not live the same year twice. Make sure there's always progression. Yeah. How can we save the chat? Corinne, that is a great question. 1 second. I think I can do it. I don't know if that means everybody. You're all very welcome to. What I would say is please don't use things externally without that person's permission, just because we always hope this feels quite safe and supportive. But if you're able to do it, you're very welcome to. I will save it. Here we go. Save chat. Thank you for that. And I'm really happy to share it with everyone. If you can as well, go for it. You can, Steve. Brilliant. Yeah, so please save it, use it for your own purposes. If you're going to share anything externally, please just anonymize it unless you have checked with that person first. Brilliant. Thank you all for helping everybody else. So I hope that's felt like a good start to your Thursday. As always, lovely to spend time with you all. If this is your first time joining, I hope that was what you expected, and you feel like you've had a sort of good dose of development, and it's felt useful. Next week, we will be talking about how to learn from hard moments. So when something in a week doesn't go well, how you can learn from it. So that's what we'll be doing next week. So see you all soon. Thank you so much, everybody.